relate to you the concerns of several fishermen in my district. The immediate and overwhelming fear is insolvency. They wonder how they are going to support their families if their livelihoods are decimated. Many have offered suggestions from relaxing catch quotas and waiving permitting fees. These are proud, robust workers who cringe at the thought of standing in line to get a paltry check from BP. They want to work. While I realize that the primary focus remains on capping the well, and it should be, have there been discussions within NOAA about short-term relief for those in the fishing industry, and what are the prospects for long-term relief?
Yes, and thank you for the question. Apart from the disaster declaration that we spoke of earlier, you did mention catch quotas and permit fees, and while I can't speak to any specifics on that right now, it is under discussion, and I believe that when in the advent of the stopping of the leak and when the spill is cleaned up, NOAA has to look at their whole fisheries management cycle over this year and next year based on the impact that this has had to the fishing community, and is committed to do so.
Great, thank you. I'd also like to follow up with Ms. Nugget's question on disbursements. I know that representatives from the Southern Shrimp Alliance have expressed a deep and abiding fear that the use of the disbursements poses an existential threat to certain species in the Gulf of Mexico. As I understand it, John Williams, the executive director of the Alliance, wrote NOAA and EPA weeks ago, but has yet to receive a response. I hope I can get an answer right here and now. Why are disbursements still being used when the EPA called upon BP weeks ago to find a less toxic means of breaking up the oil slicks at the surface? It is unprecedented that tens of thousands of gallons a day of dispersant are being used subsurface. We have no clue what type of long-term ecological destructions these toxins will cause. Would you agree with me that while the spread of oil is destructive enough, oil compounded with a dispersant is exponentially more devastating? If so, why are dispersements still being used? And I'd like to hear, I guess, from first from Mr. Westerholm, and anyone else would like to address that issue as well on the panel. Thank you.
I'll take the question first, and the short answer is that dispersants are still being used as a trade-off with respect to the total environmental risk. And I would say that one of your statements, which was dispersed oil, the toxicity of dispersed oil in that localized area is probably greater based on testing. However, the construct of using dispersants is that it will more quickly biodegrade, and so being that far out offshore, the oil that is already dispersed will disperse and biodegrade before it reaches shore, and that's that balance of trade-off. Obviously, one of the things we're concerned about is what is that impact of that dispersed oil in the ecosystem that's being dispersed.
If I could join in, the problem with the dispersants it is subsea. There is no scientific data that it will degrade quicker at subsea conditions under pressure and in those temperatures. Absolutely no scientific confirmation of that. The problem we have is that it is now there, unseen and unknown as to where it's going. We're constantly on patrol. We'll have places where we'll see absolutely no evidence of oil being present. The next day you will have heavy oil. It obviously came in under the booms that are out there. It traveled in a subsea transport system. We have no idea the impact on the entire food chain that's going to be there. You asked a question earlier, the lady from California, I believe, asked a question, Colorado, I'm sorry, asked a question, how long we'll be assessing this? It'll probably be decades, because you'll have to do constant analysis, And what we fear is that there is some link in the food chain that will be destroyed by these subsea dispersants. These are little microscopic particles that can be consumed all the way by the plankton, the phytoplankton, the copepods, the shrimp, the larval sea creatures that are out there, and then consumed further and further up the food chain. And until we've had the time to assess that, that's the fear we have. This is an experiment that has been conducted, which we objected to from the very beginning.
Anyone else on the panel? Yes, please. Thank you.
I would just comment that dispersants are controversial in virtually every oil and gas situation. I would agree with this comment. Dispersants are a tool. We just need to know how to use them well. And in order to do that, I think we need the background research at periods when we're not in the middle of an emergency or a crisis in order to understand the nature of the dispersants, how they work with specific types of oil, whether they work better in offshore areas or nearshore areas, et cetera. There's a lot of background work that really needs to be done that I think tends not to happen as it should when we're not in the middle of a crisis. And so now we're faced with making ill-informed decisions sometimes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank the gentleman and like